Hello, everybody. Welcome to another conversation about understanding 504 and IEP plans, sickle cell disease, and school. Today's conversation will be with caregivers and students, and we're going to talk about those accommodations, advocacy, and the school experience. As a caregiver myself, I know that sending your child who is living with sickle cell disease can be challenging. When we send our kids to school, there are many challenges that they will face. That's why it is important for us to have conversations like these. So I want to begin the conversation by saying thank you to Cayenne Wellness Center. Cayenne Wellness Center is a 501c3 organization that is located in California, and they serve the entire state and help people who are living with sickle cell disease. And so they are the host of today's conversation. Today, we will be joined by caregivers and students, and we will allow them to introduce themselves. To begin, I am Elle Cole. I am the mother of two. I have twin daughters, one who is living with sickle cell disease, and the other who has sickle cell trait. We are going to be talking about the different experiences. So if you've listened to our past conversations, today is going to be completely new, completely different. And we invite you to bring your pen and pad along. Also, text a friend. Let a friend know that this conversation is taking place and they don't want to miss it. So share this on your social media channels and invite others to participate. We will be taking your questions, so feel free to interact in the chat. All right, without further ado, we have our panel who is going to come up, and we're going to allow each person to just share what is your connection to sickle cell disease and where you're from. So again, I am Elle Cole. I am contacting you today from Maryland, the great state of Maryland, and I am looking forward to today's conversation. Hello, Brenda. Go ahead and introduce yourself as you all are coming up.
Hello. Greetings everybody. I am Brenda Green. I'm here in the beautiful state of South Carolina. I am the mom of three. My youngest, Braden, has sickle cell disease. And my husband and I founded the Be Strong group in his honor to do our part in giving back and spreading awareness. I am so grateful to be here.
Thank you. Vanessa, you are next up.
Good afternoon and good evening, depending on which coast you're on. My name is Vanessa Rhodes, and I am the mom of two. I have an adult son that is living with sickle cell disease. I'm a semi-retired educator, and I've helped serve at conventions working with the children.
Awesome, awesome. Who do we have up next? We have Emian. If you could quickly introduce yourself, that would be awesome.
Hi, my name is Emmy Johnson. Everybody calls me Emmy. I had she turned 20 um, last week. A warrior. I'm a co-founder of Ionis Hope Cells. I work in the healthcare space and also lately have been doing work with legislation.
Thank you so much. And let's see who is up next to introduce themselves. Okay. So we are going to start today's conversation. And I know for each of us, this is a conversation that we always look forward to because it is one where we learn, we connect, and we've really found a village in each other. And so I am grateful to have each of you joining me today to really give families a roadmap. So we want you all to stay tuned to our entire conversation today. We will have a giveaway for you today, which is exciting. And we also will have a gift. So, a guide, a checklist, a roadmap to help you along the way. So, we want you to stay tuned and we thank you. So, we have the Robinson Sickle Cell Foundation, all the way from Eastern North Carolina, joining us today, supporting Emmy. And also, I just want to say, I appreciate you all the way from North Carolina. We know that students all over the nation are starting school soon. And so this is a time where we can really go ahead and get started and make sure that everybody is able to learn what this conversation is all about. So I know that Brenda and Vanessa, you both are the parents of sons. So for you, I want to make sure that families who, sometimes the moms really dominate these conversations, but this is not just a mother conversation. This is a conversation for everybody, for anybody who is parenting, for any type of caregiver. So whether you are a parent, an auntie, an uncle, a sister, a brother, a cousin, we know that caregivers come in many different forms, and you may be a teacher that has a child in your class who is living with sickle cell disease. You want to support that child, and so you're joining this conversation to really get a better understanding. And so I know that we also have a teacher who's here today. So is Jasmine able to come up?
Hello, everyone. Definitely glad to be back in this conversation, in this space. My name is Jasmine Baker. I am a sickle cell warrior. I have sickle cell SS. I am also a teacher. So I've gone through the process of going to school with sickle cell and now being the teacher where I administer IEPs. Now, I have not yet had a student, to my knowledge, that has sickle cell, but I do understand what it's like to, give out accommodations to students, and I'm definitely glad to be a part of this conversation. Oh, and I'm
Thank
from
you.
Maryland, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I just want to just pause here just a quick second and say that we are honored to have you, Jasmine, because Jasmine has the unique position of really being someone who's been in all of the roles. So Jasmine started out a couple years ago joining our conversation as a college student. And Jasmine is, she's navigated the world through having a 504 plan herself. And then she graduated, and now she is a teacher and facilitating 504 plans and IEPs for other students. And so she does hold that unique position to really have been in all of the roles. So you've been an elementary school student, a middle school student, high school, then college. And so really you understand all facets. And so what we are going to do is probably shift the conversation just a little so that we can make sure we are ready to talk. And so I don't know if Jasmine, if you can really just quickly explain what a 504 plan and an IEP is for.
Yes, it's a little different. They both provide accommodations. 504 is, I guess IEP specifically, that's where you have like a team. I guess both considered you can have a team, but there's a lot of documentation with them involved. IEPs, you have meetings with your team, with your provider, your Your counselor could be on that team. These accommodations are really provided for those who are really impacted, and they need these accommodations to help support them in school. Same with 504. And then I know when we talk about like in the college level, we have DSS. That's where you have disability services. And that's kind of more self advocacy. You have to actually go out. Whereas IEP, that's kind of like the legal matters where it's on the school for them to handle certain things. So there's definitely a difference. And when we talk about advocacy, it's transferring the advocacy where you're getting your care and your caregivers on the team, your mom, your family. But then as you get older, that advocacy kind of gets transferred to you. So yeah, that's kind of the rundown.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, we are going to get everybody excited about this conversation by really talking to the caregivers and hearing a little bit about how their experiences were firsthand. And we're going to really get in the nitty gritty of this. So, when your children started school, what did you wish you had known about 504 plans, IEPs, disability support services for college students, and advocating for accommodations? So, Jasmine just explained to us that a 504 plan is a health plan. An IEP plan is for it's an individualized education plans for students who may have a learning difference. And so for our college students, they will be able, if they have these plans on the books, they'll be able to take that information, that foundation on to them in college and apply it to their disability support services. So parents, when you first started out, so I'm thinking pre-K4, we have some parents whose kids are entering school for the very first time. Can you think back that far and say, wow, how was that experience? And kind of tell us, how did you navigate the world?
I guess I could go first if that's okay.
Sure, Brenda.
Yeah. So, I got to think way back. It's been about 20 years or 19 years, but um, we were fortunate. I was fortunate because initially my mom watched Braden for the first 3 years. So he entered preschool, and at that time I had no idea about accommodations or what to ask for, but I just knew we had to be careful. And fortunately, he started out at a small preschool, so it was easy to kind of communicate with the teacher. And I am a communicator, so taking on that role as wanting everybody or wanting his teachers to know what he needed. I started off like that in preschool, but he started public school in the first grade. And so I honestly wasn't aware of the 504 plan then. I just knew to come in with information for the school nurse and the teachers. And it was actually his elementary school nurse that took the initiative and told me about it. And so that's how I learned initially.
Good afternoon. So, Brenda, I have to go back 32 years.
Oh, yes.
And then I was a late mom too. Our first experiences with school, we did the Mommy and Me preschool. I had been a classroom teacher before I had become a mom. So I knew about the IEPs and the 504s plans. However, we didn't need them because we had decided to homeschool as a family. But even as a homeschool family on this end of things, I would still write down those things that you see that your child needs. And one of the reasons we wanted to homeschool was so that we could make the accommodations. And when they're talking about accommodations, is how do you best support this child to be able to be successful in their learning? And so I wanted to be able to let him sleep when he needed to sleep. I wanted him to be able to take the medication if he needed to take the medication, and those kinds of things. So we did lots of field trips and things. I still documented what was going on with him so that we could know, and we use that term triggers real loosely in our community. But you want to see what the onset are on. Are there any things that seem to be cyclical? And even with that, you guys, you know that we can't plan for everything, but the things that we can plan for, we can look into. But I knew that the best thing about an IEP and a 504 is that it's an education, it's an insurance plan if you are, so that you can be prepared, just like you have auto insurance. You may not have to use it, but you want to have it there in case you need it.
That is awesome. So I will say that as a parent, I was really nervous about sending my child to school. You know, she had received this diagnosis. I really didn't know any other people who had sickle cell disease. So I was kind of navigating this in a new way. And I was scared. So I decided to homeschool my kids. So I homeschooled them until they were in sixth grade. But during that time, I did learn more about 504 and IEP plans and the federal mandate. Because in my state, when you homeschool, you really needed to register, you had to register your student at their local school. So I had to go into the school and I had to learn what they would be offered because the school district, they want you to know, what resources would be available. And so it was a learning experience for me. When I decided to put my children in school, they ended up going to a private school. So I had to let the school know this is what sickle cell disease is. I asked, did you have any experience with it? They actually had a student that had sickle cell disease before. And so that was a blessing because it wasn't completely new to them. And they also knew some other people with sickle cell disease. So when they first entered school, I felt like a little bit more reassurance because they had a familiarity. And I knew that I needed to partner with my child's doctor, their healthcare team, to make sure that the healthcare team knew about about my child going to school. I wanted to see if maybe the healthcare team could train the school in any way if that was necessary. And I think it's also important for families to understand that not all schools have a school nurse. So sometimes, depending on where you are, it can be certain resources are available in certain areas but not all areas. And so I think that is really important for people to understand. That's information that you really want to start ahead of time, seeing what is available, who is knowledgeable, and who isn't. And at least trying not to go into it scared. If you can, like go to a support group in your area, like if your hospital has one, to meet other parents who are navigating this, I think that can kind of help ease some of the anxiety around it. And so I think for me, I think in hindsight, I wish I had of, not been afraid to begin with and really given it a try when they were young, because I think that we are a village and I think we do well when we help each other. And so I think that is huge. And I know we have some other caregivers who are part of this conversation too. So at any time, they can definitely pop on in. And I'm thinking of Emiyan and Star to pop on into this conversation. My next question is, what accommodations when your kids were young made the biggest difference for your child living with sickle cell disease? And are there any accommodations that you had to especially fight for? So I'm thinking some of the typical accommodations that we encourage people to have is allow your child to be able to go to the bathroom. Why? At any time, you want your child to be able to go to the bathroom because they should be drinking water throughout the day. They should have a water bottle with them. They should be allowed to keep that water bottle with them. And so that may mean more frequent trips to the bathroom. So, you all that just joined, I see Star. Star, do you want to jump on in there and talk about some of those accommodations that exist? What were they and what did you have to specifically fight for?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Star Simmons. I am a mother of a 23-year-old with sickle cell disease as well as a 38-year-old with sickle cell disease. So I had a gap in between there. When it came time for me to fight for accommodations, um, I will say that. If I had to think back, I've been advocating for a very long time, and even with my own kids. I think the one that stuck out the most, and that's the one that I fight for people the most for today, is
OMG,
no.
it's gone again.
Can you guys hear me? I'm sorry because I'm hearing someone else. It's. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, and
Yeah.
Imiyan,
Okay.
we can
Okay.
hear you.
Okay. So I would say it was
Hi,
note
I'm
taking.
sorry. Technology was just teching. And I really could not hear for until now. So I want to say I will just touch on one of the things that you um, talked about was water, have an allowance to water and bathroom. And as we talked in our earlier conversation, being from a southern state, and we made a choice to put Ayana in a smaller school, um, because at the time we felt like she wasn't able to, express her needs and those things. So I think you could understand the like what I'm trying to say there. So most of the time she was the only African American or Black, whatever makes you feel comfortable in her class. And so sometimes I had to just be very, sometimes it goes past diplomacy. But after you've done all of those things, then you just have to say this is a documentation and you're just not, it's not a possibility for you to be able to challenge it. But I would say our children's hospital is really good. They had they had a sheet that had everything on it: temperature, the lowest temperature that they shouldn't be outside, the highest temperature they shouldn't be outside, having water at the desk, not sitting under vents. It was very comprehensive. So that made it a little bit, it, it made it a little bit easier.
Thank you, Imiyan. We are going to come back to you. Star, I know that you were sharing.
Yes, yes. Yes. So as I was saying, was I would say the most challenging accommodation that I had when I first started out was note taking. As you know, when you're trying to take notes during test time for testing accommodations, and you want to use your notes, the school will fight back or push back and say, no, that's allowing you an upper hand on the students. Which is not the case, actually, because study have shown that a student who uses a book to go back in and look for the notes is going to take longer than a student who doesn't. And so there's a disadvantage, actually, when you use your book to take a test. But what I did was I fought for the student to use note cards. So the school will give you pushback and say, well, if you can't use the book, you can't use no cards either. And I said, no, that's not the case. Because no cards, you can fight that as what's called a recall, which is to recall your memory. And so a lot of times we don't
I
know
can't
that, but we
hear
can do that.
again.
Um, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Star. Sorry about
Okay,
that.
okay. That's okay. That's okay. So note taking is really using your note cards are really important. And just to let you know, if anyone ever give you any challenges about that, they can't because you cannot create barriers when it comes to a person getting a fair education. So if I can't use my notes and I can't use the book, how can I help myself to recall something I was taught if I have an infarct during this moment while I'm taking a test? So that's how you fight that. And those are one of the things now that I put in every young person's 504, no matter what, is that they're going to always be able to use every note card during a test. Now, the school will try to fight you, but they can't do anything about it because it isn't an advantage. For me, the person who has sickle cell, it's called recall. It's not giving me the right answer. So it's just like if I put on my note card 4 plus 4 equals 8. Okay, that could be an advantage. But if I put 4 apples plus 4 apples, I still got to acknowledge that there's 8 apples there. So whichever way you want to do it, we can do it. But that was always the challenge. But now, of course, that's no longer a challenge. And to be honest with you, when it comes to your accommodations, there are no really unreasonable accommodations because everyone is totally different. It's as long as your child doesn't have an advantage over the next one. And it's impossible for your child to have an advantage over the other person. Your child is disabled. So there you go. And when it comes to sickle cell, you can have an infarct anywhere where there is a blood vessel. So all of a sudden, I can be sitting here and appearing to be cognizant of what you're saying, but I'm not necessarily am because the medication is slowing me down. So if this medication is slowing me down and I've already been taught what I've been taught, then this card is just a recall for me. And so just for moms out there, just so you know, if a school tell you you can't, you can use no cards. But the answer to your question, again, sorry I took so long, but that was my challenge, but it's no longer my challenge anymore.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. You know, what I'm wondering is when sickle cell causes the unpredictable pain crisis, the extreme fatigue, long hospitalizations, and missed school days, it's almost inevitable that it will. How have you all worked with your child's school to make sure those absences did not equal an academic penalty?
Um, let Is it okay if I answer that
You
question
can
first?
begin. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. First of all, your child misses school due to their disability. It is against the law for them to count that against your child. Doesn't matter if it's 10 days straight and the child is not in the hospital at home, that child is still sick. You just need to bring a note from the doctor. Um, you have to notify the school, however, every day that that child is gone. You need to do that, whether it be via email, which is what I suggest, and not just a telephone call, because sometimes all kind of people work in the nurse's office and at the attendance desk, they're students. So I've always learned to ensure that I keep a paper trail, which is using an email format to be able to track that. As far as work is concerned, makeup work, just remember this: every school is different and every school has a BP policy, and every year that policy change. In the past 10 years, all of us would sit there and click on that button online and say we acknowledge the rules of the handbook and never look at the handbook and never look at the BP policy. But what you do not understand is some of those policies will display if your child is absent, your child has to make up Saturday school. That is not the case for your child because your child has a disability. And so some parents would go and try to make that up. You don't do that. Or if it is say after 3 days, you can only get 50% of credit. That's not the case because your child is sick and your child has a disability. So your child is covered up under that 504 accommodations. So what I try to do is just always at the beginning of the year, I look at the BP policy. And if it says after 3 days, you get 50%, then I'm going to say for every day that you miss, you get 6 days to make up that one day. Okay. Because they're giving you three, which you're not giving me anything. That's the law. That's your policy. So I'm going to say for every day that my child missed school, he's going to need an additional 3 days, which means you get 6 days. So if you miss 4 days of school, you get 24 days. You say, well, how could that be? That's impossible. No, it's not impossible because even at the end of each semester, each trimester, each quarter, they have so many days to go back and put your grade in. Okay. And then what you also can do, because your child missed all of that, you can also create it in the 504 accommodations that for every day that your child missed, your child would do the homework, but your child would not go back and do any tests, because a test is only a compilation of what you've already learned or done in the classroom, which is homework or in classroom homework. And so that is how you address those issues.
I
Wow, sir.
I'm
Wow.
sorry. I just had one quick comment about it because
Sure.
that's in an ideal world. Yes. However, that doesn't. You could have all the documentation, and you can email everything, walk everything. I think sometimes we just have to talk to other people. So, for instance, what I'm saying is your school board, whoever you voted for your school board, have their information, have their email to the ready, have their superintendent's email to the ready, because we had all of this, right? We had all the documentation. The principals sat down and did it with us when we transferred from a private school to a public school system. Um, and Ayanna was homebound and nobody came out, and it had more to do with, okay, she was academically sound, but that's not that's not her fault. She still needed to somebody to come out to help her with her work, and not just say to me, actually say to us, oh, she's good, she's smart, she's intelligent, she's going to make it. And I think those little nuances we also have to go back and address, and also know what is available, because when things weren't working and then they say, oh, well, you didn't tell us what you needed. Well, if you don't tell me what's available, how am I going to know what's needed? So I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm saying yes, that's great,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
even
yeah.
now in college, I've told Ayanna, listen, if you go to the health center to get a Band-Aid put on, get a school note. So at least you have that documentation to cover you, because the more
Yeah.
documentation you have, the better it is. So I agree.
Yeah, so let me, if you don't mind, let me share this with you. The law is the law. I've been doing this for 30 years. Schools will get over you if you allow them to get over you. The law doesn't change. The law is firm. It's about what you know. The school board has no authority over a school. So that you understand that. Schools are independent. The school board and the school district are part of the support system of a school. Schools, believe it or not, whether they're private or public, they're independent. That's why everything goes at the school. So a lot of times people think, oh, I'll go file a complaint at the district. You can't file, you can file a complaint, but it doesn't do anything because the school is independent. Now, what you have said to me, if I think I heard you correct, was a violation of your civil rights. In every school, there is a department called the 504 department, okay? The accommodations department. So if a school doesn't do something right, you go to the district and you can present that case to them. Technically, they're supposed to assist you through the Office of the Civil Rights. However, because I've done it many times, you can go straight to the Office of the Civil Rights yourself. If you have a 504 or an IEP, doesn't matter which one, IEP is federally funded, 504 is just part of your civil rights. So therefore, you don't pay anything, but you still get the accommodations. If someone violates that, the school has to pay for that, meaning they're going to pay the penalty. They're in violation of a federal law. Now, when it comes to your child not getting what they're supposed to get, now on a private school level, that is very different. Private school is private school. They do not adhere to any of those rules. They're independent. They can do what they choose to do. My son went to private school. My daughter went to public school. Um, However, when you are coming in there, whenever you sign a contract, because that's what it is, a contract, whether it's a 504 IEP, it is a contract. If either party break that contract, that is a violation, period. Now, whether it be homework, whether it be you didn't put my child where the window was and it was part of the 504, or your substitute came in here and told my son that he cannot use the calculator when he's been using it for the past 9 months, or it could be different to where I had a teacher who was really nice to me, and she was giving me the accommodations, but I did not have a contract. And then all of a sudden now she's mad and doesn't do that. Well, she's not in violation of a contract because you never had anything in writing. She was just assisting you. So it's really important to understand um, our rights, which is I try to do when I'm assisting parents, because I want you to know that you don't need anyone technically if you know your rights, because your rights are your rights. I can stand up against 10 people in a room, and I have stand up in the room with attorneys and everything, because the law doesn't change. Now, people will see what you know and what you don't know, and some will tell you and they'll do their job. But to be honest with you, the people that are in there doing these 504s and accommodations, these are young people who have no knowledge of 504. Someone gave them a book, and then they're just going day by day. And that's what it is. And so, therefore, they're trying to tell you what you can get access to and what you can't. And you have to stand your ground and say, this is what I am going to do. And that's whether it's from a middle school, high school, or a college, because I work at colleges as well. Even though it's independent, as a student, you go to disability support services, it's still the federal law.
Thank you so much, Star. I want to take this time right now to kind of let people know, because I know some people probably missed the introduction, and I had the privilege of being a coworker with Star for many years. And Star is our host, Cayenne Wellness Center's CHW. She is their 504 and IEP plan expert. And if you are in the California area, you can contact your community health worker and they can put you in touch with Star, and she can help you fight for your students. So, those of you who are in the California region, she is an asset to have on your side. At this time, I know we are getting in the nitty gritty, and this conversation can go on, and I know it's exciting, and I know we're spirited and passionate about this because all of us love our kids. Well, I know we have a presentation that we want to share with everybody. And Star, I want to give you the floor to really just break it down. We're going to break it down for everybody so that they can see the overview. And when we come back, everybody, we have an amazing treat for you because we have our students. So we have students who are living this. We are not just parents up here telling you about our experiences. We also have those who are living it who will be sharing their own experiences with you. So at this time, we are going to give Star an opportunity to share a little bit more about the overview of 504 plans, IEP plans, and also disability support services. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Again, my name is Star Simmons. I am the community health worker for Cayenne Wellness Center, as well as I'm the president and founder of my own Sickle Cell Foundation. But today, what I want to do is I want to come to be able to assist you and serve you in any kind of way that I can possibly help you. Because again, I am very passionate about this, because just like you, I am a mother of a 38-year-old and a 23-year-old. And I want to be able to assist you all. So today we're going to look at a few things, as Ms. Carly said. The first thing is understanding the difference between a 504 and an IEP. I know Miss Jasmine so articulately, she articulated the difference between the two, but I want to go a little more into it. And so we want to shine a light just on what is the difference between a 504 and an IEP, as well as what is the purposes of disability support services. So if we could go to the next page, please. So here we go. So the introduction, understanding the 504 accommodations. First of all, your 504 accommodations is part of the Rehabilitation Act as of 1973. It is accommodation that is often called like a 504 plan. And this particular plan is set up by the school with you. Let me say that again, set up by the school along with you and your team. Not the school by themselves, but you are the team as the parent, as the everything. And so what it does is you are provided accommodation services. And so, with that being said, the 504 gives your student 504 accommodations, and it changes. It doesn't necessarily changes what they learn, but it changes how they learn it, how they attain it. And so this will allow, with the 504 accommodation, it allows barriers to be removed so that that student can have access to the same curriculum, the same thing that other students have without being removed out of the classroom. Okay, let's go to the next one. So I want to give you first some examples, and I am going to stop here and there, but I want to give you some examples of what a 504 accommodations look like. One is extended time. We spoke about that extra time on tests and assignments. That is so vitally important to me. Many of you probably have dealt with this, so have I. So I use my own kids as the guinea pig. I'm just going to say that. And that's why I'm passionate about your children. A school may tell you, well, I already give the whole entire classroom an extra day to turn in everything. Well, you're not talking about the entire classroom. You're talking about your child who's disabled because they're going to try to put your child in that box. Um, it also helps with assistive technology, text to speech, audio books, screen magnifiers in the classroom. Some kids may just need a spot where they can sit quietly because when they're sitting in the classroom and people are distracting them, they can't really focus. And so maybe your child want to sit over there in the corner and listen where you have a quiet space. Or your child want to sit near the teacher. You can make those accommodations. Modified presentations, maybe you need a larger print, maybe the graphics, you need different type of graphics, or you need everything color coded. Those are some type of accommodations. um, Preferential seating, that is definitely one. I know many a times we say, well, I don't want my child to necessarily sit near the air conditioner or by the door, or I do, or I want my child by the teacher. Then the teacher would say, well, for social skills, I switch the kids' seats up every 5 days. You still can say my child's seat does not get switched up, because often they would try to sway you to do that because they want to convert you to what they want. But remember, you are your child's advocate, right? And so you have to let your child know. Let me know the moment they change from what I've asked for. And behavioral support. This is a big one. Visual schedules, movement breaks, and organizing. A lot of our young people with sickle cell, as you know, many of them take tons of medications, even from the age of 5, opiates. And sometimes it can cause them to have behavioral issues. And so some may need a shadow. Now the school will fight you because here's the thing with the 504. 504 is offered to every single person with a disability, no matter who you are. So I can have a peanut butter allergy. And that 504 would state that you're not going to allow anyone in the school to eat peanut butter. I know you all probably know about that one, and I just used that one because we all know. Um, Not even if they sit in at a different table, because that person can say, well, if they leave residue on that table, my child, could end up in the hospital, which is very true. And so the accommodation is available for every single one, right? And then you want to look at the possibility of accommodations to where you may need one to say, I want Joy to go to the bathroom every 3 hours or every 1 hour or every 30 minutes. And the teacher may say, well, no, because I'm teaching and I don't have time for that. Well, guess what? We have accommodations for that. What we do is, and I automatically put that in 504s, we use the sticky. The sticky is that the teacher is teaching, Joey just goes up to the desk and he grabs the yellow sticky and set it on his desk, walk out the classroom, go to the bathroom. He doesn't have to interrupt her teaching the class. He's gone to the restroom. No one has to know about his disability because he just walked out. The teacher knows the code. So that's all we need to know. We don't have to disclose his medical condition to anyone because he went to the restroom. So these are some examples of accommodations. Water, I think I heard a mom say, many people say, well, the kids get water break. My child can have a break whenever they want to have a child. They don't have to have a break when everyone else have. Again, you can say my child can have a water break, or maybe your son needs juice. Because they say water, he may need juice. And so if he needs juice, he can have it. What we do is we compromise and put that juice in a container instead of a clear container so everyone doesn't see that it's juice. But then I can still have Joy have his juice without distracting everyone else. I'm going to stop for 1 second before I go on to the next thing. Any questions right now? Okay, we'll go on to the next screen. This is where we discuss the difference between the 504 and the IEP. Now, in here, these accommodations do not change the curriculum. Remember, in a 504, whatever we're going to do, it is not going to change the curriculum. It will ensure that the students still can have access. What do I mean by that? Well, let me give you an example. If your child has a math test today and there's 30 questions on the test, I do not feel that my child needs to read 30 questions and answer them. He's sick, he's having a crisis. We bring him to school so that he can get his instruction time, but really, he can't do this. So the test is just a compilation of what your child has already learned, right? And so, therefore, we can either say he can take 5 questions out of there and do it, and they can just count for a percentage if he missed a certain one, right? Or we can do 4 and each question is 25%. That's it. That's all we need to do. We didn't change anything about the test. We just said we're not going to take 100 questions. Um, so therefore, with that 504, you're providing my child the accommodation, but again, you're not giving my child the upper hand. With the 504, you can have any disability again. You can have sickle cell, you can have asthma, you can have Asperger's, you can have allergies. A 504 is just a section of your civil rights. Also, a 504 provides you accommodations to the child's environment and not to the curriculum. So my environment may be I'm here in this classroom with 30 students and I need to learn, but it's too many distractions. So either I can be moved to the library to do my test, I can be moved in the corner, or I can take my test at lunch or after lunch in the office. We didn't change anything. We just changed how it was given to the student, right? We didn't ask you to give us a cheat sheet or anything like that. With the 504, it is reviewed yearly to ensure, excuse me, effectiveness. Now, here's the thing I want to emphasize 504s are examined on a yearly basis. However, a 504 can be reviewed 30 times a month if that's what you choose, because every day there can be a different issue with your child. That is just the rule for the school. That is not for you, the parent or the caregiver, because your situation can change from day to day. So we would have to adjust according to the need of the child. Now, when you're looking at an IEP and a 504, let me say this, a 504, well, I'm going to come back to that because I don't want to confuse you. Let's go to the IEP. With the IEP, the 504 is just accommodations. The IEP is federally funded, which means that every part of the services that are provided to you, the school gets paid for it. On a 504, everything that's provided to you, they don't get any extra money and they still got to provide this. Now, I'm going to show you the difference in just a second, how the two can come together. In a 504, I only need to provide you with some type of documentation that my child has a disability. I do not have to give you his medical records. I do not have to give you access to his medical records. I do not have to give you access to his doctors. By law, I only have to provide you with a letter stating blah, blah, blah is seen up under me, Dr. blah, blah, blah for medical condition. That's it. I don't have to have my doctor write anything or nothing. I do not have to do that. I just have to have someone licensed to say, this is my child. And I've always said, this is Alyssa Rain Simmons. She is seeing me for sickle cell disease, and that's it. You don't need anything else from me. In an IEP is a little different because an IEP, you have to be tested for these services. You have a team of psychologists. Again, you still have your same 504 team, but the difference is there's certain tests that are ran to test their ability, their learning ability and capability. And so with an IEP, there are 13 disabilities that are listed up under it. Now, one just happened to be sickle cell disease. Sickle cell disease is listed up under the 13 disabilities for IDEA, But sickle cell disease is also listed as a 504 disability because it's a disability within itself. So you're going to see the difference. So most of the time when you go to a school, the school will try to sway you to go to the IEP. The IEP is going to require you to give me legal documentation stating the disability your child has. And then we, the school, will go and get your child tested. We will bring in a psychologist to test your child. Now, you do, as a parent, have the right to go and get a second opinion outside of the school district. Let me say that again. You, as a parent, have the right to go outside the school district and get an additional psychological testing to compare the two. With the IEP, it also includes a plan that is designed specifically for your child, just the same as a 504. But with the IEP, you may have some benchmarks there because there could be some type of cognitive function failures or some physical impairments that prevent your child from getting around. Which the physical impairment can fall up under the 504 as well. With the IEP, it creates also a level playing field for your kids, meaning that I'm going to put benchmarks on your kids. I'm going to make sure that your child gets what he needs, but I'm going to determine at what level how much we release. Okay. Whereas a 504, I'm going to stay in that classroom. I'm going to be taught the same way as everybody else. If 90% of the class, 95% of the class get it, and I'm still stuck like this, that teacher has to stop and make sure that I comprehend what she's saying. Now, the problem with that is the teacher don't want to stop because she feels it's delaying her. But you got to stop to make sure that my child understands. He doesn't have to get pulled out the room and be up on an IEP because you don't want to stop in the classroom. So those are the difference between the two. The 504 does not cost anything to the parent. And the IEP doesn't cost anything to the parent because it's federally funded. The IEP, however, have very strict rules when you are utilizing these accommodations because they set benchmarks. And so I have my own. I don't want to say necessarily negative opinion about IEPs when it comes to certain people, but at the same time, I'm not so much for IEPs if you don't have to have it because everything that you pretty much need, you can get out of a 504 if you have sickle cell disease. And I've advocated for many people with many challenges with sickle cell disease, and the schools will have you in IEP, and I would go pull them out the IEP, and now they got to give them everything they need in the 504 that's in the IEP. But the difference is Joey gets to stay in the classroom with his peers and not necessarily go into a room where kids may be at a different level than he's at. So instead of him um, being in a field where he's in a level playing field with his peers, he's now has a setback. And so that is the difference. So when you are looking at the two, let's say your son is dyslexic and he has sickle cell, because some kids just don't have sickle cell, they have other challenges. You can turn around and say, okay, I want my son to have all of these different items, auditory items, whatever it is that you need. And the school may say, well, we can't provide it. We don't have it. We don't have the items right now. We can't do it. You can actually go to a private school, and that public school has to pay out of their federal funds, out of the IEP fund, for your child to go over to a public school, a private school, to get what your child needs, and it's not going to cost you. Yes, you did hear me correctly. If your child has a disability where the school cannot provide the services for you and you're in a public school and your child has an IEP, that's federal funded money. That money has to now take care of your child in a private school if you can find a private school that can provide what you need. Because again, your child has a right to a free education. Now, if you have a 504, can it happen? No. And so that's where the two kind of conflict with one another. But again, every child is different. So you look at the needs. When you're looking at a 504 and an IEP, can you get all the time off, the 6 days or the 10 days off per day? Yep. When you look at an IEP and a 504, can your child have accommodations to where he doesn't have to do PE? Yes. Can the both provide it where your child can require that they have in-home instruction. Like the one mom said, my child may have been sick for 5 days, 6 days, 10 days, was stayed at home and no one helped us. Well, the school is not going to tell you that, but they are required after so many days, after 5 days, you can say, he has been home, he is sick. You need to send someone from home instruction. They still have to provide that home instruction, even out of a 504, because you cannot create a barrier for that child. It's not your job to teach the child, it's their job. Because for every day that your child is out of school sick and you call in sick, they still get the federal money for your child being absent from school. That is why you got to call in sick, because even though your child is absent, they still get paid for your child to be there. So therefore, they are required to provide services. I'm going to stop right there for a second. Do we have any questions? Okay, we'll go to the next page. So, when we're looking at the IEP, what is an IEP? Again, it's an individualized educational plan. It is legal and it's a written plan, as a 504 is. It is a legal contract. The IEP provides special services for your student. It exists because it is part of the IDEAL Act, and it must be reviewed again annually. However, at any time on an IEP or a 504, if you feel that you are not getting what you need, or if you feel that anyone at any time is violating the contract, you can say you have to notify the school. I want a meeting. They said, well, we visit your plan in about 4 months. No, no, you're not going to do that. We're going to request a meeting now. And they have to see you. They cannot tell you no. Even over the summer months, if there's summer school, that's still school considered in. And so they have to provide these services for you. Okay. And so it's really, really important that I know a lot of times we get tired of fighting because we fight a lot for our kids and it's draining. It's physically, mentally, emotionally draining. But if we don't fight for them, who will? And today, unfortunately, you got a lot of people who don't want to do their jobs. And so we're going back to the old school, but I just refuse to allow you to sit there and not do your job. And so every time I go into a school, I look at your child as if it's my son, Sharon, and my daughter, Alyssa, and I fight like they're mines because I know the feeling. Although I fought from the beginning and I had a lot of pushback, but I didn't have a lot of pushback because I come from a family with this background of advocacy and medical and education. I knew the system, but more importantly, I knew the law. And as long as I know the law, I don't care who walks in that room. It does, unless the law changes, then we change with it. And so, we have to continue to fight. Let's go to the next page. So, with the IEP, an IEP is available for anyone between the ages of 3 to 21. You can have an IEP as early as 3 years old in the public school system. Um, I don't necessarily say put your child on an IEP unless, if they have physical impairment, let's say they got infarcts and they're hurting all the time and they got to take their medication, you can still have a 504. Um, if they're in the wheelchair, you can still have a 504. You just now need a shadow person to push them around school. So it's better to get a shadow person. Because for me personally, I feel that it's really important for kids to be around others for their social skills. That's really, really important. And when you isolate them and put them in a room, you're locking them and kind of throwing them away. And I've been in this system, like I said, for 35 years advocating. And I've seen some of everything. I've been to the lowest neighborhoods to the most prestigious neighborhood. And there's no discrimination. They just do what they do. And so we have to always be ready to fight. And so the services that are provided through an IEP, those are, as I said, they create marks. So
It seems like we have lost our presenter, but fear not. For those of you who are listening, I did mention that we do have a Q&A at the end of this conversation. And I know periodically Star has stopped and asked if you have questions. So where do you put those questions? Whatever platform you're on and listening to us, you can type that question into the chat. feel free to type your question into the chat or to send, if you have my information, please feel free to send me your question. That is another way to get your question asked. You can email me at, I will put my email in the
Hello?
chat. Yes, Star, you cut out for a minute. So I'm just letting people know that they can ask their questions in the chat, or they can send an email
Can you
to
can you guys hear
carly.cayennewellness
me now?
at gmail.com if you have questions. And I will put that email in the chat. If you have questions, put it in the comment box of the platform that you are using. And Star, we are not able to hear you, so we are actually going to transition. Can you hear me? All right. So again, if you have questions, you can put your question in the comments section. Do we have Star back? Sometimes technology does its own thing. So thank you all for bearing with us. We do apologize for that snafu. Um, I know this presentation was really, really good and getting into the nitty gritty. What we will do, we will definitely ask Star if she's willing to share that presentation with you. Again, we will have a resource link for you where you can get the information that was provided to you today. So we thank you. And we are actually going to transition the conversation to our panel. And with this panel, this is a youth panel. We have students and young adults who will tell us what they wish schools understood and how their 504 and IEP experiences were. So we have Braden. I want you all to come up. And when you're coming up, please introduce yourself. Welcome, Braden. Tell us who you are.
My name's Braden, and I'm 20 years old. I go to USC in South Carolina, and I have sickle cell SC.
Thank you, Braden. We have Jasmine. We can't hear you, Jasmine. We still can't quite hear you. So while we are working those audio issues, we're going to go to Maya.
Hi, I'm Maya. I'm a high schooler in Maryland.
Thank you. And Layla.
Hi, I'm Layla. I am a high schooler and I am a warrior.
Thank you so much. So, my first question is, what is one thing you wish your teachers, classmates, or school administrators understood about living with sickle cell disease? And this question is for Braden and Layla.
I would say one thing I wish they would know is that sickle cell is really unpredictable, so we can't really, you know, say when we want or don't want to have any pain. Like it'll just come out of nowhere. It could come in like one of your biggest projects in school and you just can't deal with it, or you have to be in hospital or you just stay home. So I wish they can understand that part and really just be more understanding about that. And then I know some teachers like be strict, especially in college. Some teachers will be strict about their deadlines, but I feel like if they understand that, then they'll be more willing to listen.
Thank you. Thank you, Braden. Layla.
I think I wish more of my like the school staff could understand that I mean, simply that sickle cell is very hard to have. Um, and I feel afraid in that it's unpredictable. And I think I really wish they would understand that even simpler things that everyone else can do sometimes, I can't always do. But like even if I'm like not able to do it, I don't want to be um like punished for.
Punished or singled out. I think that's something that that I've learned is that often um, teenagers and students don't want to be different than their peers. And so now we have Jasmine. So we want you to introduce yourself and let us know what's one thing you wish teachers and classmates and school administrators understood about being a student living with sickle cell disease.
Okay, hopefully you guys can hear me this time.
We can hear you.
Yes, sorry. My name is Jasmine again. I'm from Maryland. I have sickle cell SS, and I think the biggest thing to know, it's always tricky with invisible diseases because um, with anything it's easy to stereotype, but I feel like when you can't see something, it's definitely easy to make your assumptions on things. And I think even now that I'm in the workforce and I have coworkers now and bosses, it is very similar to being a student where you have your teachers, your principal to look up to and to answer to. But I think it's tricky trying to figure out and use your discernment on who needs to know what, and then not allowing their projections on you to kind of like control the narrative or how you do things. So I think that's one of the biggest things because we warriors want to be able to be involved, and like you were saying, we don't want to be singled out. And so I think that really reigns true even through the workforce.
Awesome. Here's the thing, when you're living with a challenge, and sickle cell is a challenge to say the least, we know that missing school because of an appointment or a hospitalization can make it difficult to keep up. What has helped you catch up without feeling overwhelmed or, or being punished for being absent? So, how have you been kind of able to get the work done even after a setback? And I'm going to ask Maya. We're going to start with you.
Hi. I have a 504 plan, but it's not for sickle cell. And one of my accommodations is actually getting out of my sixth period to attend therapy appointments through telehealth. So, the annoying thing about that is obviously I'm missing class. So in the semester, I had to talk to my teacher a lot and email him and ask to make up work that I missed while I was doing my appointment. Um, I wouldn't say I experienced a lot of pushback with that because I'm lucky enough to have a good relationship with this teacher. I've had him for multiple years, but I would definitely say for people who like are experiencing similar issues in terms of missing class and stuff to always keep in touch with your teachers because, well, teachers like to teach, but teachers also appreciate you being as clear as possible, and the clearer you are, hopefully, the more they can help you. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I want to see if Brayden, can you answer that question for us? How you're now in college. You were, in high school before, but what year are you in college again? And how have you been able to keep up even after you may have been sick for a little bit?
I'm a junior in college this upcoming year, and I would say I've been able to keep up by two things. One, definitely communicating with your professors. That's a must need in college, especially. And then two, about having like accommodations with the disability center, so where they can set certain accommodations and they'll email the professors at the beginning of the semester and say like, oh, you need this. And then if I'm sick or just out of school, I can reach out to the professor and like send a doctor's note or a note in general if I'm like home. Um, and they'll understand once they see that, they'll let me know what I need to catch up with, and they'll extend the assignment date, however many days I was out.
Incredible. So I heard you talk about, keeping in contact with that professor, with your professors. And for the first couple years of your life, your parents were the ones who did most of the advocating for you. And now, as you all have gotten older, you've had to learn how to speak up for yourself. And I'm really wondering, what advice would you give younger students who are still learning how to self advocate? Because all of you, at first, I'm sure it was a struggle, but now you all are accustomed to it. So I'm going to go with Jasmine for this and then Layla next.
Well, I think the biggest thing is just having the support around you. I would not have been the advocate that I am today without my family, specifically my mom. She's, the biggest advocate for me and in this community space. And it definitely is a challenge trying to navigate the transfer. Like we talk about the different transitions we go through as warriors, but one of the main transitions I feel like we don't talk about is when your primary caregiver now becomes yourself. And so you have to learn how to advocate in those spaces, not just in the hospital, but at schools, at your job. And so I think just learning how to navigate that while still handling your health is something that is not easy, but just surrounding yourself with the people that will support you through that. And so you can get a good, and as a teacher, one of the biggest things is modeling for me. So when you see good people around you advocating for you, you're able to like implement that in your life. So
Excellent. Thanks so much for sharing. Layla, before you go, I want us to introduce Ayana.
Hey all, I'm so sorry. I'm like talking back and forth with doctors and stuff like that. As you can see, I'm currently in a hospital. So I'm kind of just navigating that. My mom's one of my primary caregivers is helping me, talk to one of the doctors on the pain team. So kind of what we do, huh? Just like working, school, sickle cell at the same time. So I feel like it's kind of a testament to what I have going on today. But yeah, I'm actually glad I was able to hop on here with everyone because, in all honesty, I think it's incumbent upon us to be honest about also the mental health aspect of all of this. So I'm excited to kind of talk about that today as well. And I was feeling a little bit blue, so I'm glad I can be amongst other like-minded warriors like myself. My name is Ayana. I just turned 20 last week, which is like ew, gross, but also cool. Made another year around the sun. And I'm a microbiology major on the pre-med track at the University of Alabama. And I'm also a 501c3 nonprofit owner of my own nonprofit called Ayana's Hope Cells. This is the bear actually here that helped me start it. And I decided I wanted every patient to be able to have a comfort object while they're in the hospital, and now transitioning that into adult care as well. I'm also a dancer. I've been dancing since I was 3. I'm a violinist as well, performer, public speaker. So I kind of do a lot. I model as well. And yeah, I kind of just like to show other warriors and other people with any sort of hardships that they're able to accomplish whatever it is that they set their mind to. You have to work for it, yes, and it might look a little bit different than everybody else's normal, but that's okay.
Thank you so much. And We're so happy to have you join us. Happy belated birthday to you.
Thank
And we're
you.
all praying and sending you hugs from all over the world. So
Thank
I
you.
know that we have mostly people from America, but I did see in the chat that we have someone in Ghana who's also joining us. So we are sending you remote hugs. So
Thank you.
Layla, this next question was shared with you. Now that you've gotten older, what advice would you give younger students who are still learning to self advocate?
I would say, especially in school, um, like don't be afraid to voice what's going on, like and state it plainly and clearly. That especially if you think you're like, especially if you're not being treated correctly, like don't be afraid to just say it plainly that I'm not being treated right and I think things should change. Because I think a lot of times people can be scared, even if you are an advocate and you're used to it. I think people can sometimes be scared to actually say directly to someone, especially like in administration or something, that things are not right. Um, so that's what I would say.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think it's important you mentioned speaking up. Speaking up, finding your voice. I know it can be hard at first, but it is important. Ayana, we're going to jump back to you for that question. Is there anything you would add to that? What would you tell the younger student who sees you, they're like, "Wow, 20, you're in college and they're looking at you all for inspiration." What would you tell them, because you've been where they are?
I think I would. I kind of already been blessed to meet younger warriors in the space who are students in primary school, and I think the big thing I would tell them is that it's important to start transitioning early as you can. I also come from a dual military family, so both of my parents wore the uniform. And so I also have an insight of what it was like as like a 5-year old when I needed to make sure I knew all of my medications, what could happen if I have a sickle cell crisis, the pathophysiology of that. And so I could explain it to other people as well. And so I think it's important to teach it in a tangible and digestible way for kids to understand. But I would tell them, hey, when you're in your appointments, instead of looking to mom or dad or whoever's in the room with you, try to answer the questions as best you can. Look at books and stuff like that talk about sickle cell or talk about how to deal with different rare diseases. And then also showing them pictures, images, I think is really smart as well. So they can kind of understand what's actually happening in their body. And it's more comprehensive, but still digestible for them to understand. And then also that they can do anything as well outside of having sickle cell disease. Get involved in school if you want to be in your student council, if you want to be involved in other clubs, you want to travel with your school, play an instrument, whatever it is you can do. And don't just be afraid of doing that because of your disease process, even though you might have to do it a little differently or talk to your teachers about how that might look for you with sickle cell.
Incredible. Here's the thing. This next question is a free for all for any of you who want to take it. Sometimes your parents have advocated for these accommodations, they're listed on paper, but the teachers or the school, they're not following them. So what do you do then if your accommodations are not being met? How do you speak up?
I think that's so hard to answer because, like, in the moment, um, like I'm sure we've all been there at some point in our educational journey where we had to like advocate for ourselves, where we watched our parents or our caregivers advocate for ourselves. And I feel like it's a really hard question to answer because when you're faced in that situation, obviously it's because you need them. And there's so many things that you go through. And Ayana talks about the mental health aspect. Like there's so much of a toll that is taken when you feel like you have to demand like what's owed to you. And we know Miss Simmons was talking about, you know, your rights, your civil rights, and things that should be put in place and should be followed because they are your rights. But we also know that not everyone, unfortunately, is educated enough to understand that they are rights. And so when they can't even understand that, then it's hard for them to administer to you what you feel like is deserved to you. And so I think the biggest thing is like things what we're doing right now, where we are advocating for ourselves, where we are educating the community, where we are coming together and we're able to share like our experiences, talk about ways we can help. And I just expanding our community and sharing and spreading out education is really helpful because sometimes teachers just don't know. Sometimes staff just doesn't know. They don't understand the gravity and they don't understand like why these are needed or whatever the case is. And so I think just being able to have environments like this where we are sharing tips and tricks is going to be very helpful for the community, not just for yourself, but for people around.
I wanted to jump in and answer this because that has happened to me so many times before throughout all of my years in school, honestly. I remember in high school, I literally had to fight to walk across that stage because of how much they were trying to, how many times they made me so sick to the point where I didn't even know if I was going to be able to return my senior year, if I was going to have to just get my GED instead, because there would be situations where I had certain teachers stress me out so much, so I would be even more sick. And it was like this continuous cycle because they were not abiding to my accommodations. What I would say is pull up policies and then also pull up what is written in your 504, underline, circle, highlight, and you can send it right back. And then also going up the chain. So if your professor's not doing what they're supposed to do, I'm quick to send an email to a student dean that I trust, to somebody that um, I am have a relationship with in the school, so they can help escalate the situation. But yeah, I think just underlining and highlighting what was already written in your plan and then sending it up always gets things to happen quickly. I remember my freshman year, I had an elective class. In an elective class, I realized I had a C, and so that's supposed to help, bring up your grade point average. And I didn't realize why I had it because, everything was fine. My work was turned in, and it was because of my absences. And so she was like telling me, my professor was telling me that she's actually giving me grace because I missed more than I was supposed to. And I was like, you're not doing me a favor by abiding by what is written in my plan. So we need to fix this. And since she didn't want to, I just went to her department head, got a grade change right back to the A that it was supposed to be. So it's really that simple. Sometimes people don't want to do their jobs or also might not want to see you succeed. Um, so make sure that you do what you need to do, even if it seems annoying and obnoxious to like underline and highlight things and stuff. They're not paying attention to them, so you have to make them pay attention.
That was a great point. And I know earlier Emiyan was talking about document, document, document. And I know in our experience with my kids, there are teachers who are not following the accommodations, and it's like they have amnesia or they don't review it. And some teachers, because you've missed a lot of days, they do penalize you. And so I liked hearing that you're like, well, if that person didn't listen, I went to the person above them. And so that's something that you have to have courage and the confidence to do. There may come a day when any of you have to do that. Does anybody else want to speak to that question before we move on? I guess not. Okay. All right. So this next question is for those who are preparing to attend or already attending college, how is advocating for yourself different from when you had to advocate in high school? What should students know about requesting accommodations and finding support before they arrive on a college campus? We're going to start with you, Braden.
Um, I would say, well, it's a lot different, like very different from high school or middle school or whatever to college, because you don't really have your parents to, step in, tell them, hey, can you do this for me? So, real, and you have to do it by yourself. And most of the time, anybody in the disability office should be, willing to help you. They just want to hear from you. They would just want to hear you say what accommodations you think or know you need, and they just want, I guess, a proof or some note from your doctor, just letting you know that you need these accommodations. So I really think in college it's not as bad as you think. You just have to have that courage to just speak up for yourself, because once you speak up for yourself, the people will be willing to help you.
Thank you, Braden. Jasmine.
Yeah, just to piggyback off what Braden was saying, it is on you to become the advocate for yourself. So I say make a plan, planning out before you get to the point where you need it. Make sure you are prepared. I would even start as early as high school. Plan out where you want to go. And I know we've talked about this in previous sessions. Plan out what makes sense to you, where your healthcare team is going to be. Contact disability services. Don't wait till you're on campus to do that. All of these things that all this pre-planning will help you when you get there, and while you're in college, um, because you don't have to do that when you're in need of it this very second. Look up different accommodations. Some of the accommodations that you had in grade school might not be the same exact language that they use in college, but if you work with your disability counselor, they should be able to help you navigate like what accommodations might be beneficial to you in the college world. But just even as early as high school, get that plan in motion. Figure out a location that is going to be beneficial for you, because you don't want to be somewhere where there is no healthcare, where you are not able to get help outside of your campus. I think that's one of the biggest things that I was grateful for, the planning that I had before I stepped foot on a campus.
That is sage advice. Ayana, this next question is for you. And I'm just wondering, before you went to college, was there anything that really surprised you about that transition and how you had to navigate disability services?
Um, I think for me, what I guess surprised me the most was probably how much there are people willing to help you. And in college, I feel like it was a lot easier, actually. My professors were actually a lot more understanding than a lot of my teachers there. In high school and in other grade levels of my life. So I think for me, it was actually pretty easy to connect with them as long as you just made that effort. So for me, what I would do is at the very start of the semester, first day of class, I'd go to the professor and introduce myself, usually try to sit close to the front. and then introduce myself, just tell them a tiny backstory about me. And then I tell them, let's set up a meeting, get their email, and then I meet with them, or, virtual meeting or whatever. And then I'm able to walk them through my disease process. Then I do a follow-up letter of what we talked about in the meeting, send that to their email along with the attachment letter from my advocate at my hospital. So she's the student advocate. So make sure you also tap into those if y'all are at children's hospitals. I know that they have some student advocates there and also in the adult world as well. So make sure they can help you because mine has helped me a lot transitioning. So I attach both of those letters and then go from there. And I make sure I CC somebody I know who's in a place of leadership. So, after that, and then having a connection with somebody, I mean, I know my professors then I felt like were very much more open to wanting to like be there and help me. Of course, you kind of get a couple bad apples. There always will be at least one. But I was honestly surprised at how willing my professors were to work with me. It's just about, having the courage to foster that relationship. And it doesn't have to be, anything super serious or anything like that, like constantly reaching out to them or anything like that. But when they're aware and they know, and then you take that approach, it makes it easy. And also, you don't have to do it alone. I didn't realize that you can involve your parents just as long as you make sure you have them sign or you sign the FERPA waiver. So if you sign that, then your parents can advocate on your behalf. Had to happen for me a lot. I don't know about y'all, but I definitely have a very, very hard time communicating, especially on a screen when I'm in the hospital specifically, on certain medications, whatever. So that's another tip that I realized. They're completely fine with that as long as you have that signed.
Excellent. So I thank you all for sharing your experiences. Before we pull you down, is there anything you would like to add? You want the next generation, the generation before you, to know about having a 504 plan and it, the experience of working through it? Maya, we're going to start with you.
Oh, I wasn't sure if I was going to say this, but I definitely would agree with what Ayana said in terms of like knowing your teachers and like getting in good contact with everybody, but also good rapport, because at least at my school, a lot of the reason why both me and those 504 plans were accommodated is because like we are decent students and we keep in touch with our teachers. Unfortunately, that's not really fair, I would say. Everybody should be able to get their accommodations no matter how they show up at school. But unfortunately, I would say that that gives you a leg up. Um, but either way, the communication aspect is really important. Like having these people know your name, especially at a public school where there's a lot of students, um, is really important. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Layla, is there anything you would share?
Oh, could you repeat the question?
Is there anything that you would share with the next generation about having a 504 plan to encourage them or their parents?
Um, I would just say, like, make sure that you're being, like, making, like, keep a list of your resources and make sure you're able to use them all. And as long as you can, um, like, as you use those resources, if you can find more, I would keep note of those as well. Just, like, always have a list of people you can contact and services you may or may not need. Like just in any way to help.
Awesome. Braden, this is for you, and I'm wondering, what would you tell the student who doesn't want to be seen as weird, so they don't even want to use their accommodation? How would you encourage them to take advantage of that accommodation that could help make their life a little bit easier?
Um, I definitely been there before, to where I wasn't using some of my accommodations because I didn't want to feel like out of place or anything. But I would say that really it doesn't make you out of place. Like it really just makes your, I guess you just think that because, oh, I have some special accommodations while other people don't. I'm weird, blah, blah. But in reality, it doesn't make you weird. It doesn't make you different than normal people. You just have to, I guess, get over that fear of being different. Um, yeah, I would say just get over that fear of getting different. Like, you have all the support in your school, from a lot of people, and nobody's going to like call you out just because you have accommodations, or if they do, they don't really know what they're talking about. They're just saying it just to try to bully you or something like that.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I know all of the parents and aunties and uncles and grandparents who are listening, they're like, just listening to you students talk about your experiences is encouraging. Ayana, to the student who is maybe a first year college student, they are, thinking about going to college, what would you say to them who feels like, man, high school was hard, middle school, had its challenges. I think college might be too hard. Maybe I shouldn't do it. How would you encourage them?
For me, I would just say to again embrace your different normal. Kind of like what you were asking Braden about feeling weird or out of place. Honestly, so I say, who cares? Everybody's weird in their own way. I'm weird. Embarrassment's a social construct anyways, in my opinion. So if people are actually focused on you that much that they're like realizing what you're doing, I have no shame. I bring my blanket to class if I absolutely need to, if I'm really cold. I have my jackets on, and maybe I go to a PWI, so we know these people don't like to wear coats in the wintertime. Ayana Johnson will be wearing a coat. And I really don't care what anybody says. Like, you just kind of have to, embrace your different normal, and that's okay. And also, I would say, think you're already a warrior. We're not called warriors for no reason. So think about all of what you've been through before. It doesn't mean this next obstacle of college, it is going to be hard. And then sometimes it's going to be hard. In some ways, it's going to be harder. I would be honest with them. But also at the same time, there's a lot of growth and a beautiful journey that you can embark on if you just embrace that. And you've already been through hard things before. Why can't you do another hard thing? And you might just have to do it a little differently. I know for me, to be transparent, the first 2 years of college have been excruciatingly difficult at some times, but I still also really enjoyed it a lot of the time as well. It just, life has its ebbs and flows and ups and downs, and you can't ever um, mitigate that. Like you will have challenges along the way. But even for me, sometimes I have certain classes that I take online, or I drive my car sometimes instead of walking. If I'm like, okay, this might preserve me a little bit, especially if maybe I have a rehearsal or something later that day. So you can do it. You absolutely can. Like I said, you've been through hard things before, and you can again, but I wouldn't pass up an experience to have so much beautiful growth, and also foster deeper connections that you never know if you'll have the what if, question in your head if you didn't. I just think you need to evaluate your situation, but also don't be afraid to be uncomfortable because that's how you grow.
Thank you. I just feel like hearing from all of you has truly, truly warmed my heart as a caregiver. And there was a comment in the chat from Sabina, and she says, I have gathered so much hope here today. And that's why we're having this conversation, because we want to equip our community with the tools to help their loved one who is living with sickle cell disease succeed. As we transition into the next part of the conversation, Jasmine is going to share with us a presentation to kind of bring it all together. She's going to wrap this thing up in a bow. And I just want to personally say thank you. Thank you to Braden. Thank you, Layla, Maya, Ayana, and Jasmine. So without further ado, Jasmine helped bring us home. Then everybody, we will have the Q&A. So thank you so much for joining us. And you are listening to a conversation that is hosted and supported by Cayenne Wellness Center. Jasmine, I think you're muted.
Muted, yes. I'm so sorry. It's been so long since I've been on like a Zoom type platform, but thank you so much for allowing me to wrap up the conversation. I won't take up too much of your time, but we are going to touch on some key points with advocacy within education and just understanding and navigating what that looks like at the different levels. We are going to talk about the caregiver support. I know we touched on that at the beginning of this session where we heard from the caregivers. And so I'm going to just bring home the actionable resources that you all can do to help support your warrior. Then I'm going to focus on the student role and how that transition between you being the primary caregiver and now your warrior being the student and that role that might change and what that looks like. And then I'll just touch on a few takeaways that I want to leave you all with. So, as caregivers, you guys do a lot. We appreciate you all, and it is so important that we are able to kind of focus on what type of supports you can provide for warriors in the educational space. We have talked about accommodations. We know hopefully there's an understanding on what the difference is between a 504 and an IEP. I personally had a 504. An IEP, like Ms. Simmons had mentioned, that is like kind of at the federal level. So there's a lot more documentation that comes with that. And when you hear IEP, that is specifically an individualized plan for your child. And so that requires different goals that are checked and measured with data. And so that might be a good resource for you if that is something that you need and you know that you want to have something that's specific to your child. 504, the way I see it, is simply just accommodations. And I think that that was beneficial to me in the time that I was in grade school. And we know that we kind of talked about what is provided versus what is actually fought for. That we have to sometimes go through the fight to receive these accommodations, but know that it is your right to have accommodations. They are legally binded, so you need to make sure that you are just following up with people and keeping in mind that what you deserve is what you should be receiving. So there's always a way to make sure that you are getting what you deserve. And I know it's unfortunate that sometimes we have to fight for these things, but it is at the end of the day going to be beneficial if you have the accommodations that are put up for you so that you can succeed in school. And so as we move on to getting, older, you graduated grade school and now you are either going, I had personal experience with college. I went to the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. I don't too much know now that I'm thinking about the trade school route. So I would look into that. But at the college level, there are now disability support services. So that is where you really have to go and follow through as the student. You have to go into your disability office. Typically, you are awarded a disability counselor. At least that's how my school did it a few years back. And you have to do that every semester, if I'm not mistaken. I'm trying to remember, but I believe it was every semester you had to check up. At the beginning of the year, I made sure that I had my accommodations, and then I sent my letter that your disability counselor is granted, or that gives that you're granted, and I send that out to all my professors. And so, like Ayana had mentioned too, sometimes you need to meet up with your professors a day or whenever the semester before the semester begins. Depending on how many professors you have or what your major is, that might be something that you do every single semester just to make sure that your professors know what's going on. And then moving on to just advocating, it is so important that we communicate and that we educate. Um, which honestly, I should probably switch that, because if you're educating first, that means people are more receptive to listen to the communication because they know where it's coming from. And organizations like Cayenne Wellness and platforms that give you a chance to just gain more information, and then hopefully you are sending that out when it's needed. Join. Make sure you are attending parent teacher conferences. And as a teacher now myself, these are very important. You need to know what's going on in your child's education so that you can advocate for them. It's really hard to do that when you don't show up. Parent teacher conferences, that's a great way to do that. Um, and then the bottom says know everyone on your team. Your team could be whoever you want to be on your team, really. It could be your hematologist, your physician, your guidance counselor at your school, your parent, your principal, the teacher. There's lots of different people that can contribute to your educational journey. And so know your team. It is important to do that so you can advocate the best way. And then when you look at strategies, document. That is very important. That is just very important in life. Make sure you document your letters from your hematologist or your physician, your emails from your teacher, from your staff at your school, whoever. Document. Then the next bullet point is follow up. Then the next bullet point is document, because you should be documenting consistently. That covers yourself, and that makes sure is that everyone knows what's going on within. There's so many different people that could be on your team, so it's very important that you document. Like, I will stress that forever. If you are on a phone call and you heard something or you had a conversation with a teacher, make sure you send a follow-up email. Very important to do that. Leave a paper trail. And then lastly, just be transparent. You need to build a transparent relationship, again, with everyone on your team. Because that is going to be easier. Like we were saying on the panel, it's easier to, I mean, it's kind of unfortunate, but it's easier to receive certain accommodations or to receive the treatment that you deserve when people see your face, when you build a connection with people. And so, not even just your staff at your school, but people in your community. Make sure you keep in touch with people so that you can get any support that you need. And so I think that's the biggest way that we can advocate for children in schools. And again, um, it's really just interesting, like being full circle. I remember being in grade school and having to go through this process. Even being the nosy kid that I am, I remember what my mom had to do from the caregiver side. And then now being a teacher, like I just see the roles that is played with just advocating and making sure that you are receiving accommodations in school. So next, the student role. When you are transitioning, we talk about transitioning all the time. And I think sometimes it falls through the cracks where we talk about the different ways that we transition. So I want to touch on transitioning to, as a student, and now having to self advocate for just your education and not relying on your caregiver to do that. So you have to be empowered to do so. And what I mean by that is you cannot be shy. Um, Maybe I'm not going to say you cannot be shy. It's harder to do things when you are shy and reserved and you don't speak up for yourself. People don't know what you need if you don't tell them. And so just be empowered and know that you have people around you. It might not be you saying it directly to your teacher, but you have a community. And so say that to someone in your community and make sure that you are telling someone that you need. Tell someone should be able to advocate on your behalf. So build relationships with people in your community, at your school. I think Ayana was mentioning an advisor. I can't remember the specific name of the advisor, but there's going to be like peer advisors. You might have peer counselors at the college level. Befriend someone who has a strong voice if you don't have a strong voice, but build relationships with people. One is a life skill to have, so you should definitely work on building relationships with people. But also, when we talk about advocacy, it is really hard to do things by yourself. And as warriors, we can get burnt out. So we don't want to, I know we like to take on a lot. I'm a type of person who likes to take on a lot and try to do a lot, but you have to rely on people. And so that is something that can build your independence, ironically, if you are relying on others around you. The next point is develop communication skills, another life skill that's very important. It is going to be important that you are communicating with people who need to know. And I think that's important to say because we talk about communication a lot, but sometimes not everybody needs to know your business. Sometimes you need to have discernment and know who needs to know stuff, and what stuff they need to know. And so that comes with time, that comes with trial and error. If I'm going to be honest, I had some moments where I might have overshared something and then it didn't work out in my favor. But I think as I've gotten older and as I've seen the village around me, I know who to say things to. I know what to say to them. I know how to say things to them because communication is not just about saying things. It's how you say it. It's who you say it to. It's when you say it. It's all these different things that sometimes need to be explicitly taught. And sometimes we're not given those skills. So I would just say trial and error. Don't be afraid to make a mistake. Know your rights. These are your rights. Accommodations are your rights. Federally backed up. Um, I know that doesn't always mean something in this day and age, but we are warriors. Like Ayana said, we are called that for a reason. We have the ability to fight for our rights in hospitals, and it can translate to fighting for our rights in the school system. Like I said, make a plan. I am someone who likes to overplan, and you don't have to overplan, mind you, but I think making a plan is very important because you don't want to end up in a situation where you wish you would have planned and now it's harder to do so because either you're sick or you have a lot going on or you don't want to stress yourself out. I think making sure you have a plan can definitely lower your stress, and we know that is something that's very important. What I will say is something I had to learn. Don't be married to your plan. Things happen, life happens, things change. When you are making a plan and then you become married to your plan, you can get very frustrated if things don't work out. And that's something that I had to learn, especially as the pandemic. I went to college during the pandemic. And so my plan that I worked so hard to create since I was like in ninth grade did not go the way I had imagined. So that is one of the biggest things. That doesn't mean don't plan. That doesn't mean over plan. That just means don't be married to your plan. And then the last one, document. Make sure you are writing everything down. Keep a paper trail. If you make a phone call, send a follow up email so it is in writing. All your disabilities letters, make sure you keep that for yourself. Even make a paper copy. I know we're in the day and age of technology and everything is on your phone or your laptop, but I personally like to keep paper copies. You don't have to do that. I think it's just another layer of protection. Um, what else could you document? Document your appointments, document conversations with your teachers. Just document. If you don't think you need it, you probably do. If you think you should delete it, well, I don't know. I'm a hoarder, so I think that you need to use your own discernment for that one. And then lastly, I want to talk about takeaways. Navigate the transition, and just what it looks like with accommodations because as we talked about, it has changed when you're in grade school, when you're in elementary, middle school, high school, college, workforce. It is going to change. So navigating what that looks like. I have a few key takeaways, and I don't like to have too much on my presentations, but I did want to leave you with something just in case you guys, hopefully I can share this resource with you all, but just know your child as a caregiver. That is something that, you naturally might have that instinct of just knowing your child, but I also would say talk with your child because your children change and they might not have the ability to understand that change and be able to communicate that with you. So just know your child and communicate with them, know their strengths, know what is something that they struggle with so that you can come to an understanding on what type of accommodations will be helpful to you. Um, the next bullet says what accommodations actually help versus what looks good on paper. And I think that's something that we kind of don't talk about a lot. There's some accommodations. I actually think that you should have any accommodation that you think is going to be beneficial, whether you think you're going to use it or not, because it's easier, especially from the other side. It's easier to already have that in writing than to now have to add it back into writing. So, what is it saying? It's better to have something and not need it than to need it and not have it. It's kind of like that kind of thing. You don't want to you don't want to have it and then, or you don't want to not have it and then you need to, go back and have a meeting and add it into the thing. You might as well just have it. And then if you don't need it, that's okay. You don't have to use it. Um, the next part is to be transparent. Like I said earlier, transparency doesn't necessarily mean you're telling everybody your business all the time. Not everybody needs to know your business, but you do need to have honest conversations and appropriate conversations with the right people so that they know what's going on, so that they can help you. And that can mean many different things. That could mean just having conversations with the people in your community or having conversations with the people in your school. And now that I work, having conversations with the people at your work. And I think I mentioned this last year. I have told select people at my school about my illness, and I think it's good to know who you can trust, but you definitely have to develop that skill over time. Not everybody knows everything, even people who might be considered your boss, they don't need to know every single thing. As long as they know the important things and what you need and what your rights are, then I think that's good. The next thing is prepare for transitions. It is, again, easy to prepare for something than to kind of be blindsided by it. So there's lots of transitions that happen, and I kind of list the transitions that we sometimes don't really talk about. I know we talk about going from peds to adult care, but there are a lot of transitions that we go through. And so just be prepared for those different conversations. Talk to your healthcare team, talk to your community, talk to your caregivers, and talk to people who are older than you and who have gone through these transitions. And then the next part is just making a plan. Make sure that it is something that is practical, something that you can do when you're sick and do when you might not be able to do it for yourself, but you can have people do it for you. Make sure they know what that plan entails. And then plan for anything, plan for an emergency. I think for me, I had a really hard transition going to college because I left home. I thought that's what I wanted to do. And it turned out great, but it was definitely hard for me to kind of navigate that because that was in the midst of a lot of things changing. I went from pediatrics to adult, and then I changed from my home a hospital that I've always known to now I'm in a new state, now I'm at a new school, and now I have to learn how to advocate for myself. So just make sure you're having those conversations. Rely on your community members, rely on the people that are going to support you. Learn to be observant for the people who are really going to support you, not just when you're healthy and when you look like you're healthy and when you're the life of the party. Look to see those who are really going to support you when you are sick and when you don't have when you don't have the energy to advocate for yourself. And then last one, document. Make sure you keep a copy of everything. I still have copies of my old disabilities letters. For what reason, I don't know, but I still have them just in case for some odd reason I need them. But just make sure you keep a copy. Make sure that you document your process. And I'm not going to drag that one too much, but document. And that's all. I'm the co-founder with my mom of Sickleware. We try to do some research and advocacy work that has been something that my mom has really instilled in me, and I'm grateful for it because I really am able to talk with you all about my experiences and kind of help y'all learn from the things that I wish I had known. So thank you so much for allowing me to speak and wrap it all up.
Awesome. I hope everybody feels just as blessed as I do to have heard this conversation, to have heard your presentation. I feel like you just kind of wrap everything right on up, make it very simple, very plain, very easy to understand for us. So I appreciate the conversation and the presentation, Jasmine. Everybody, that has joined this conversation, you all have been terrific. For those of us who are navigating this journey, we appreciate you. We appreciate your insights and everybody sharing their experience. We had caregivers, Brenda, Emion, Vanessa, Star. Thank you. Thank you for being willing to tell us a little part of your experience so that it can help make somebody else's life just a little bit easier. And for that, we appreciate it. And to our youth panel, you all just gave us that joy and that encouragement to keep going. We appreciate you all for being transparent and honest and being willing to speak up. We hope that you all have an incredible year, one that is healthy, one that is filled with people who will listen, who will support your accommodations and support you. And so to all of you who participated today, we thank you. We are now moving into the Q&A portion. I know for those of you who are on the East Coast, this has been a long day. So we understand if you all have to go. We actually have a resource for you. So if you look in the chat, you will see a link. It is to a resource. That resource is found on the Cayenne Wellness Center website. So if you go to the Cayenne Wellness Center website, the URL is cayennewellness.org from hyphen 504 hyphen and hyphen IEP hyphen plans hyphen to hyphen college. I know that was long. So I don't know if I can definitely try to make that a shortened link for you all, but it is on the Cayenne Wellness Center website. So I am going to, while we're doing the Q&A, I'm going to take a few minutes to make that a shortened link for you. That is just some extra resources. I don't know if our admin, if our tech person behind the scenes, Joy, you have been so helpful. If you could pull that up just so we can quickly show it to the people, that would be awesome. And while we're doing that, if you all have any final questions, we will take these last 30 minutes to answer any of those questions that have come up. So we want to give you all an opportunity to ask us questions. You can ask both the caregivers and also the youth. So the page is on the screen right now. It is from 504 and IEP plans to college. Important documents families should know about. And so if you would scroll down just a wee bit, what we see is that first infographic. That infographic is going to really give parents all you need to know about navigating that K through 12 experience. And so there are going to be some helpful tips on the infographic. So submit a written request and medical documentation. 2, lead the A-team meeting. So as the head coach, you want to collaborate with teachers, school nurse, and counselors to determine specific eligibility and necessary supports. Number 3, review, approve, monitor the plan. We want you to know that if you don't agree with that accommodation plan, you have the right and the responsibility to say, hey, I'm not signing it. You can also make sure that they review it throughout the year and make changes. So you are empowered. This image is just to give you some quick tools to help you navigate that. So it's based on the information that we shared today so that you will feel empowered. So go to this page and be able to review this information. And so college is a little different from K through 12. And so we have a sickle cell disease college success and comprehensive support and accommodations checklist. It is right there on the page, and you can read and navigate all of that information. And then under that, it lists 5 documents college-bound families should discuss. FERPA, you heard Ayana mention that you need to give your parent FERPA So there will be a document that you need to sign that gives your parents an opportunity to get your information, to talk to your teachers, and be able to support you. Because many of you in college will be adults over the age of 18, you actually have to give that authorization, and you do that through FERPA. And so the next one is HIPAA authorization. That is very important. Durable power of attorney. You want to give your parents permission to continue to support you into adulthood while you're in college. And these are some of the documents you need to navigate that. So scroll down just a little bit more. So then we have the healthcare proxy or advanced healthcare directive. And five, a living will. You want to make sure that your parents have the tools they need to fully support you in your college experience. And so this document is going to share all of that. And so I thank you. Now we're going to move into the question and answer time. So this has been terrific. If you were blessed, if you enjoyed this conversation, now is the time to put your question into the chat and we will begin answering them. So, our first question, Q1, can we put that up for everyone? Question one. And question one says, there was a question, and this from Trav20, and it says, um, any tips for employers or laws other than my accommodation? So this question came up while you were talking, Jasmine. So if you could come up, you were sharing about moving from being a student and now being in a workforce environment. Are there any tips for employers or laws other than having an accommodation?
Um, I'm sure someone can answer better about the laws aspect. The tips, I would just say, just have the discernment to know who needs to know certain things. Like I had mentioned, only a handful, select people, really my team, know the details about my diagnosis and what that entails. Everybody else kind of just knows that I might have to take certain leave various times because, like we said, sickle cell is unpredictable. We know that disability is covered under ADA. So, as it pertains to the laws, I would just say do your research on that because I do know, and as an educator, because it's by, state, I would look into your specific state to know what laws you might have, especially as it pertains to being in school as well. Different schools do different things. So, I would also just research what laws can cover you based on your state.
Thank you. Thank you, Jasmine. I want to see if Emion is available to come up to maybe speak to this question a little bit. I don't know if this is a question that you can
Sorry.
speak to, Emion, but is there anything that you would add to this question? So, any tips for employers or laws other than my accommodation? So this, I know that you are a nurse, and I know that this person is also a nurse. So are there any insights that you can give?
Um, Honestly, the insights that I would share in summary is, uh, Jasmine reiterated it a few times, is document everything. If it's not documented, it's not done. Um, the other things are, um, the other things that came up is communication. Communication is key. You have to have communication, if not with everyone, but with someone. But what I would say to parents or caregivers or guardians, friends, whoever the warrior trusts, and especially for the young ones, my biggest thing is I would say that preparation early. Don't wait until it's time to transition. When Ayana was in kindergarten, I rolled up with my bag and I was ready to educate. And I asked the whole workshops and all. And I wasn't a nurse at the time, but everybody doesn't have that voice. However,
I believe it was Jasmine said, Ayana said, Braden said, the young people said, find somebody that you could trust to help you to relay the message. It's important to give the story from your perspective. I wasn't able to get on earlier, but we have multiple layers to our situation being in the military. Both of our parents being in the military, changed a lot of things, and how the conversation went and how we did things and how who was going to come in. So we had to let more people in our village, even though all of my family is overseas and his is out of state or whatever. But it's like you have to have things ready. At least that's how we had to do it. I would also say presence in the schools. If you could volunteer, you could go on a field trip. If you could do all those things, I did all these things, and we still had issues, like big issues, to the point where I had to, they wanted to not give her all of her grades at the end of the year. And so I just said, y'all have 5.5 days to fix it. Otherwise, I might come up there and do something y'all don't want me to do. So, I mean, unfortunately, language has to change. You try to be as diplomatic as you can, but sometimes the diplomacy has to go out the door in order for you to get what you need. And somebody else said being shy doesn't always help. So, but if you are shy, get somebody that's not. Identify a leader in your community or identify someone. And again, document everything, and you have to know your student, you have to know your child, you have to know all of these things, and you still have to ask, continuously reassess and ask questions all the time. Like, for instance, did you know that you could have a personal note taker go to you at class and take your notes? Did you know that you have someone that could take your backpack for you? There are all these things that we don't know, but if we don't keep these conversations going, we wouldn't know. Sorry to go on so long.
That is perfect, Imian. And we will be gathering a list of accommodations that are available because I know every year people always ask. And so we need to get together and together gather, just create a list, and I'll add it to that page that we shared earlier. So thank you for sharing. I want to see, I'm going to actually skip to one of the new questions that came up because this is for Jasmine, and Jasmine is up here. It says, Jasmine, you kept referring to a disability document for college. Is this something that you obtained from either the PCP or the hematologist, or is this bringing in something you're bringing into high school from your 504 or IEP to college?
Okay, if I remember correctly, and what I will say is, correct me if I'm wrong, but you have attached like previous conversations that we've had throughout the years in our previous presentations, because I do remember there was maybe 2 years ago, I touched on the specific steps that I took to obtain my DSS services. And what I first did was reach out to my school and their disabilities counselor. And honestly, if you have a good counselor, you're at a good school, they will walk you through all the documents that you will need. I of course you have to have proof of your disability. So I got that from my hematologist, and I got a letter through my hematologist. I don't really remember step by step the process after that, but I would just search up your college, look at your disabilities office, contact the number, and ask them what specifics you need. And then I was assigned to a counselor, and we had like a 30-minute conversation over the phone before I was even at the campus, where I was explaining my diagnosis. And then she did ask me what accommodations I had throughout grade school. And then she also suggested some accommodations that she thought would be beneficial on the college level. And yes, I had a note taker. They give, at least how my school did it, you get like service hours. So as a student, you get service hours to be like a peer support. And so these students are in your class, and they send out a general email like, who would like to be a note taker, and then they upload it to a portal. So it was things like that, things that you don't even think about because it's just different from college to, or grade school to college. And so the document would be through your hematologist that will be sent to your disabilities office. So at least how they did it at my school. Remember, every school might be different, but every school and every university will have a disability service program and center.
Thank you, Jasmine. I appreciate it. So we have one more question, and it's really it parallels with the note taker comment and question. So the second question is, this was initially for Star, and the question is, didn't know that notes could be an accommodating factor. Wow. So how does that transfer to college? So we just talked about the note taker. Can you kind of elaborate?
Yes, sure. And I'm sorry about that. I got disconnected earlier. College note taking can happen as well as college recording and note taking, whether it be written or whether it be a copy of the professor notes, or you have a shadow person there taking the notes for you. However, all of that is determined at the time you set up for your accommodations. And so when you fill out the disability support services form, it's kind of like an assessment, if you will. And so if you're coming into college for the first time, they can use your IEP and your 504 to kind of help facilitate the new disability support services. So if you always had note taking in high school and middle school, then that's easy, right? But let's say you didn't have that, you still can say, I need someone to take my notes, or I need copy notes, or I need recorded notes. And that can be a part of it, but it's a form. And that form is available for every school. Every form may look different, but all the forms are the same at the end of the day. It's just documenting your accommodations. And so they write it in. The counselor will write it in for note taking, and you just stipulate why you need the note taken, whether it be sometimes I can get lethargic due to my medication, and so I don't want to miss out on any special notes. Or sometimes I have joint pains, and so I can't always write the notes myself. Or you can say, I want to have, which the school will provide you for the college through the services, a recorder where I can sit myself and record it. Or some of these laptops now, which these young people know, it can record it and transcribe it for you. So it's just part of getting that written on your accommodations, or in college terms, support services. And then that's it. It's just, once it's there, it's there. And so it can't be taken from you. And you can also say that if I'm absent from class, then have someone to take my notes. Or I prefer to say, I would like to request a copy of the professor notes. I'm just one of those people that I just feel like, why not get the professor notes, because they can give you the professor notes, if it's in the accommodation. Now, although the professors are the professors, again, they still have to adhere to the accommodations, right? So they notes can be good and they notes can be short. It's all about which one you want. But, at the end of the day, you do have a right to those services.
Thank you so much,
Mhm.
Star. This next question, I would love for us to bring up Vanessa for this question. It says, and you can leave Star up here. It says, do some of these accommodations still apply to online students? How would they differ? And the reason why I'm bringing Vanessa up, I know Vanessa, she does have an educator background and an administrative background. And I know that she also tutors online students. So, Vanessa, can you speak to this question? You are muted.
Okay, excellent. Online is still a new phenomenon in the era that we were coming along, but public school online services still have that department where you go and you can get the accommodations that you need for your student, the 504 or the IEP. They still have to respect that. Sometimes we did have a teacher at one point online when they were young. Um, one of the teachers, because she couldn't see it, and I remember one of the students talking about couldn't see the disability and didn't understand why his sibling also needed an accommodation if he was in the hospital. So we did have to go back and forth about why they would need extra time to turn in their work for that. But yes, online they still have to abide by that. Private schools don't have to, um, but many of them now, there are quite a few private schools now that will. We were fortunate enough that when we were in private school, they gave us the accommodations without having to bring in somebody else. So yeah.
Thank you. I want to just pause right there for a quick second because you brought up siblings. And I know that during our conversation tonight, we actually had some siblings on the panel. Layla and Maya are siblings. And as a caregiver, sometimes when you have one child with sickle cell, your other child will also inadvertently need accommodations just because of the dynamic of what is happening in the family. So could you just kind of give a few sentences on, what parents should be looking out for or how to speak up for themselves?
For us, we explained that we tried to talk to the teachers at the beginning of the school year. It was one year in the fourth grade was the first time that we had an extended stay at the hospital. And so one child was in the hospital and the other child was in school. And we explained how the rest of our village. So my mother would, one friend would pick up the younger one, bring him to the hospital. And then that teacher had to know that that time that those siblings needed to spend together was more important than filling out some paper. Sometimes for homework, we would get a homework pass on that night. So we just same communications we had to make for the son that was in the hospital. We had to make those same communications and expectations for the one that wasn't in the hospital, because whether siblings still feel what's going on in the family dynamics. And for us at the time, we were in California at that time, and the hospital, between our house and the hospital, there was quite a bit of drive time. So that's still going to affect everyone.
Now you use the word homework pass. So I know Vanessa and Star, this work can start accumulating. It can start accumulating a lot. And do our children have to make up these all of these assignments? How does that pass work?
So what I asked for was major objectives that needed to be covered that were going to be covered in exams. It didn't occur to me what Star gave us today. I was like, oh, that's a good idea. Some exams don't need to be taken if you have already proven that you can do the work. The thing I would say is most important is communicate and make sure that you do, when they give you that extended time, go ahead and try and get that work done within that time frame. And we proved that the majority of the time we could, but we all know how sickle cell is sometimes. It does not accommodate that. So if you keep that open communications and we have that expectation at the beginning, we only really need to complete that which is major to making sure they understand that that objective that has to be covered for that subject area. And we all know that every piece of paper is not necessary.
Thank you. Thank you,
Right. Can I
Star.
chime in
We're
on that?
giving you the
Yeah.
floor for this
You
one.
are so amazing because I love it when you spoke about the homework pass, because the homework pass is a pass that all students get, right? You naturally get that, right? So we don't want to just hold on to that homework pass, because therefore you're putting me back in that box with the rest of the students and I'm different. Okay. I don't like when schools do that, because they'll want to, well, you got a homework pass for 5 days. Yeah, but what you don't understand is my child got sickle cell. On the fifth day, I mean, my child actually can walk in school this morning in class. And that 3 days that I told you, some days it's 3 days, some days it's six. It just depends upon, I assess each student. But let's say if I say 6 days, but I also have it in your 504 that if my child comes to school today and sits in class all day and decides that he or she are there, but they're not there, but they need to be in the classroom, then if he or she cannot work today, they will get the credit for being at school. But they now got that 6 days to make up any in-class work. Because see, I was there, I didn't need to stay home in the bed. I fought my way through, right? But I still need that time. Or I have it in your accommodations. If I come to school today and there's a pop-up quiz, even though you told us a month ago one day there's going to be a pop-up quiz, or if I even know about the quiz, if I choose not to take that quiz today, I have the right not to take that quiz today because I can't determine the way that I
Yes.
feel. I
Right.
cannot determine that. There's no way. I can actually get in the middle of the test right now and stop because we all know you could be fine talking to you right now. 3 minutes from now, you're in the ER. So these are things that we have to understand that they're going to try to use this or use that. No, I'm gonna take this and that. And I always tell people every time I do 504s and IEPs, when I do the 504s, I'm gonna give you the max. And I know what the max is. I've done the max. The max has been 10 days for every day. And again, if you can get away with it in one school system, you get away with it all because it's all federal law. The law doesn't change, right? And so then if you use it, you use it, but if you don't, you don't. And the same with college. You know, my daughter just graduated from NYU, and she came here and did her undergrad in California. So it's still a different state, but the law is still the law. So when she got sick and they had their finals, I was like, no, you just say you can't do the finals. I mean, you already got an A in the class. You're not doing the finals. You're sick. And that's what she said. I choose not to do the finals. You can't hold that against her. You can't do anything. She would have to take the grade that she currently have in the class, whether it's a C, a B, or an A. And so we want to put these things, whether it be in your disability support services or your 504, we want to put it there because even if you never use it, because you
Mhm.
don't know, but if you don't have it, then there you go. Now you got to fight for it. But I love
Mhm.
your homework pass thing because my daughter used to use that homework pass thing too on top of her days. So I do love that.
Yes, yes. This has been awesome. I just want to, we had some follow up questions that kind of came through, and we're looking for some clarification. So, Star, I want you to speak to this. And this is regarding the accommodations for online college students. Do accommodations still apply to online college students? I will just go ahead and do a quick yes. If you could explain that a little bit more, we have that question in the chat.
So again, whether it's online or you're in the classroom, you're still a registered student. So the law still applies to you. You may do online again in college because my daughter has sickle cell and she's been sick some days and she just said, I can't make it in. Being in New York when it was snowing, I was like, you're not going to go
Mm.
out there when you just came from California. New York is still new to you. So you do it online. And so she was able to have the same services available to her. If she felt ill and she's online, she still get the 6 days. If she felt ill and she could not finish what she had to do, she said, okay, instead of me writing 4 pages, let me write a 1 page summary of what we spoke about. So those accommodations go with you whether you're online or if you're in the classroom. You only need to be registered. If you're a registered student, the law follows you. So that's just point blank, no matter how you look at it, because you're still in the classroom. It's just again, it's just what it's changing the environment and not the curriculum.
So when that person transitions from college, so they've graduated from college, and now that 504 plan is not called a 504 plan, but then it becomes a part of their disability services as an employee. Does that accommodation fall under their FMLA? And this is kind of dealing with HR. So can you speak to that? And that's the last question of the night.
Yes. So again, 504 in IEP stops at 12th grade. So anything after that becomes disability support services. And you are absolutely correct. When you go in the vocational world, it's the FMLA. And yes, that falls up under there. I mean, my son, 38, he was just sick a week ago. He ended up in the hospital after 2 years, and I showed him exactly what he needed to do. You still have those support services available to you, whether you're you're in school, whether you're in college, or whether you're vocationally. It doesn't change. It's just given a different label. That's all it is. And so I agree with every young person that was up there on your panel. Be careful who you share things with, even in the workplace. You don't need to tell everybody everything. I would just have a very small circle who needs to know what is going on with me. My son happened to have people that are familiar with sickle cell, which I'm shocked because we're in Orange County, California. But at the same time, I always tell him to be quiet about that because people can use it against you. Bit more than they can help you. But again, at your jobs, the same thing. They cannot discriminate against you. And matter of fact, most people will be there to support you because they get extra money. These companies get extra money for hiring people with disabilities. So it's actually a pro instead of a con. So yes, but if you need to take off, you can take off your FMLA for that as well.
Awesome. We are out of time. This conversation definitely got us all wrapped up. And I feel like we could go on for a long time because there's a lot to say. There is a final question, and it says, does Cayenne only work with warriors in California? I love to learn more from Mrs. Simmons. So I know, Star, your information is on cayennewellness.org. So if someone goes to the website, goes to about and looks for staff, you will be able to find Star's information there. There will be an email and a number. And I'm sure if you reach out to Miss Star, she would be happy to connect with you so that you can learn more. Star, I'm going to let you answer that very quickly.
Well, you just said it all. You're right. I'm available. Yes, I do work for Kylan Wellness, and we are here in Southern California. I believe knowledge is power. I'm willing to share what I can with you to help you. I don't have a problem with that. You'll have my phone number there. Text me, call me. I will reach back out to you. But hey, we're a family. No matter where you're at, we're all connected. Thank you, Miss Carly.
Well, thank you. Thank you to all of our panelists. I know to our tech person, you can pull me down. If you could pull those who are still here, if you could pull them up just so that we can say a collective thank you. Thank you to all. And I hope you have an amazing night. I hope this has been amazing for everybody. If anybody has a final word that you want to share before we sign off completely, let me know. Just unmute and go ahead and say it.
I would say when you're looking for colleges, make sure there's a hospital nearby.
Thank you, Emion. That is excellent advice. And just to add on, visit beforehand. Visit beforehand, start getting to know people, make sure you connect your current doctor with the new doctors. So that is excellent advice. And so if there's one final comment that someone wants to share before we say goodnight, we are grateful to Joy, who is our tech person behind the scenes. You always help us out. A huge hand clap to you. You help us transition and get through our conversations, and you are terrific. So thank you for your support behind the scenes. Does anybody want to say one final word before we say goodnight?
I would just say remember to live by design and not by diagnosis.
Amen.
Amen. All right. Good night, everybody. Terrific school year to you all. Happy work lives, and we wish you a wonderful night. Bye for now.
Good luck, everybody, in the new year.
Yes.